What is up, guys? Welcome back. We've got another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show for you tonight. It is Tuesday evening, October 22nd. Hope everyone's having a good evening. We're going to be hanging out for the next half an hour, 40 minutes. Just going through the waiver wire notes. I'm going to get to the questions here in a little bit, but I first want to just read off this crazy injury report and kind of set the stage for the video, and we'll talk about some of my favorite ads. So come on in, get your question in the chat room. I will get to them shortly here. I'm just going to I'm going to read through the injuries, and then I'll just let you guys know my favorite pickups for the week. First, week 8, we have no buys, so it's a pretty fun week for fantasy football. Not so much for these injuries lately, though. It's been pretty bad. The quarterback position got hit pretty good this weekend. Jaden Daniels left with that rib injury. I'm seeing him listed as questionable. I don't have a good read on this yet. Hopefully we'll get some answers tomorrow at practice. If you have Jaden Daniels, probably best to make sure you have a backup just in case. I think QB Tua Tagovailoa with the concussion, he's on track to play and make his return this week. Quarterback Deshaun Watson, torn Achilles, season-ending injury. We're going to see Jameis Winston start for the Browns here. So nobody was really using Deshaun Watson unless they had him in a super flex league, and I think now Winston might actually help the offense just a little bit. Derek Carr, doubtful with that oblique injury. We'll see about Will Levis with that shoulder injury. I have Spencer Rattler with the hip pointer. We'll see if he can go. Otherwise, it'll be Jake Haener. Don't think you want to rely on Rattler anyways against the Chargers. Tyler Huntley, questionable with the shoulder injury again, but we're expecting Tua Tagovailoa back. And then the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell broke his thumb. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 games. The Raiders, I think they went and got Desmond Ridder as their QB2. So we'll see. We'll see Gardner Minshew for the next month or so, and maybe we see Aiden O'Connell finish up the year. The running backs, not so crazy of a running back. Like, there wasn't really any new injuries this weekend, so it was pretty good. We're going to see about Jonathan Taylor in that ankle. I think he's going to go this weekend. Christian McCaffrey, they're going to hold him out one more game here. Then that's their bye. We expect him back week 10. You have Travis Etienne, questionable with the hamstring. He practiced all of last week, and I actually thought he had a chance to play in London, but I think he's questionable to probable for this Packers game. I have Rachaad White on the injury report with a foot injury, but I don't think that's that. When I typed this up, that was before the game last night. So I think Rachaad White's fine. Jonathan Brooks, the Panthers rookie running back, I have him as doubtful. Don't expect to see him yet until maybe next week. Jerome Ford, doubtful with that hamstring. Tajay Spears, questionable with a hamstring. And then we'll see if Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie Packers running back here, can get on the field. And then Cordero Patterson, questionable to probable. We might see him return to the running backs for the Steelers. Tough weekend for wide receivers here. The big ones, of course, Chris Godwin dislocated his ankle last night. That's a season-ending injury. Man, that one really sucked. Just considering the circumstances, it just being in garbage time, he didn't need to be out there, and it's a season-ending injury for Chris Godwin. Not only that, but they lose Mike Evans for the next 3 games. He's not going on IR. He's going to miss week 8, 9, 10. I think his bye's week 11. He's back week 12. So we're looking at a month absence of Mike Evans from our starting lineup. So tough night for the Buccaneers. You also had Brandon Ayuk, torn ACL. His season is over for 2024. We'll talk about some of the 49ers replacements here. Deebo Samuel also with an illness here. He was in the hospital. He got discharged today. We'll see about that. DK Metcalf with the knee injury. They're thinking it's not a bad knee injury. My thinking is he probably misses 1 game. Good chance to play in week 10, but they could hold him out. I think they have a bye week coming up here. Let me just double check this here. DK Metcalf, they play Buffalo, then the Rams. There's a chance they hold him out for both those games. Their bye is week 10. There's a chance we don't see DK Metcalf back until week 11. I do expect Cooper Kupp to play tomorrow night. I expect Chris Olave to play this weekend. And then Puka Nacua, man, they activated his practice window, so he's on track to play for week 9. Lad McConkey, a little bit of a hip issue, but he played well last night. Jacoby Myers, we'll see if he can go. He's been missing the last 2 games with an ankle injury. Juju Smith-Schuster with a hamstring injury. I think they're already ruling him out. We'll see, again, 49ers, Juwan Jennings, a hip injury held him out last week. We'll see if he can go this week. Demario Douglas, I have him as an illness from last Sunday. Quentin Johnston, questionable with an ankle. We'll see if Adam Thielen gets his practice window activated. He's eligible to come off IR. Curtis Samuel hurt his shoulder. And then Jalen Polk, concussion. We're not really relying on Jalen Polk here. And then a few tight end injuries for you guys. Dallas Goedert, hamstring. We'll see if he can go this weekend. I don't think he's going to play, but we shall see. And then I think we're going to see the debut of TJ Hawkinson on Thursday Night Football. I don't know if I want to start TJ Hawkinson. You know, if you need a tight end, I suppose. But I do think he plays on Thursday Night Football. And then Taysom Hill, questionable with a rib injury. And then before I get to the questions here, I'm going to just kind of share my favorite ads for you guys. So again, no buys, but if you have Jaden Daniels or some of these quarterbacks not performing well, you need a replacement. Sam Darnold versus the Rams, Caleb Williams at Washington, Russell Wilson versus the New York Giants. I think Jared Goff's fine against the Titans. Deeper sleepers, Bo Nix versus Carolina, Aaron Rodgers versus the Patriots, and Geno Smith versus Buffalo, and then one final one, Drake May at home against the New York Jets. If you need running backs available, I get it. These guys are probably owned in most leagues here, but Tyrone Tracy, Jalen Warren, Alexander Madison would be the top three if they're available. Deeper stashes at running back. And again, there was no major injuries at the running back position this week. So you're probably more so looking at wide receivers and maybe quarterback and tight end. But stashes that I like on the waiver wires, Jerome Ford, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Ray Davis, Roschon Johnson, and then deeper holds here, Sean Tucker, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Kimani Vidal, Kendre Miller, and Audric Estime. And the big prize I think this week is the receiver position. We got Romeo Doubs, Jawan Jennings. Those would be my top two priorities this week if you have those guys available here. It looks like Jawan Jennings is going to be the wide receiver too the rest of the season, and we've seen what he can do. He's actually been looking like their most consistent receiver to date here. Keon Coleman looked good. He's worth a stash. Jerry Jeudy, we'll talk about a couple other Browns guys coming up here. Demario Douglas, I still think he's the lead wide receiver that I trust for New England. Jalen Tolbert should be picked up. Two Browns receivers here, Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. These guys are the clear number 2 and number 3 receivers in the offense, and Cedric Tillman had a really nice game the other day. Deeper sleepers here, Dontavian Wicks, maybe Ricky Pearsall, Troy Franklin, Trey Palmer, and Jalen McMillan. It's a good week to need a receiver if you need one. Tight end, Cole Kmet should be owned. If not, Hunter Henry would be the prize. And if you can't get Hunter Henry, Cade Otton, just with Godwin out, and Evans out for the next 3 games here. Otton's going to be probably that number 2, number 3 target. Zach Ertz and Noah Fant are in deeper leagues. I like Noah Fant just because, DK Metcalf's going to be out. And then for defenses, if you need defenses this week, the Chiefs at the Raiders, the Lions against the Titans, the Chargers versus the Saints, the Packers versus the Jaguars, and the Bears against Washington. So those are my favorite ads. And that's the majority of what I wanted to get through. I'm going to get into some of the comments now. And good evening to Daniel. Hope you're doing well, my man. He needs a backup QB for Jaden Daniels. Okay. So could you rank my top 30? The top 3. Okay. So I think you got to probably put Brock Purdy in the top 3. I do like Kirk Cousins. I think Goff at home against Tennessee. Like Tennessee's been good against quarterbacks. So I don't know if I trust it. I don't know if I trust Richardson. I think it's Caleb for me. So my top 3 guys would be Purdy, Caleb, and Kirk Cousins. And I think that's how I'm going to rank them. If you wanted to play Caleb Williams, I think that's fine. But I'm going to go Purdy, Caleb, Cousins is how I would rank those top 3 guys here. Who do you prefer to drop, Odunze or Laporta? I have Kraft and Ferguson. I mean, if you have Kraft and Ferguson, you don't need Laporta here. So hold on to Odunze. I do like Odunze quite a bit, and I think he's a guy that could help us down the stretch here. So you don't need to be tight ends. Now, the one thing that's possibly working for Sam Laporta now is those targets that Jameson Williams was getting. Who knows? Maybe there's a little bit more room now for Sam Laporta to have a good game these next couple games. So I still would rank Kraft and Ferguson higher than Laporta right now. I think it's okay to cut Sam Laporta. There is some trade value on Laporta in a 10-man. I'm feeling he is kind of droppable. I mean, you can try. If you're willing to drop him, I think getting anything in return is worth looking into. You're going to have a free spot here on your roster if you drop him. So, if you can find a team that needs a tight end and say, hey, I'll give you Sam Laporta for one of your backup running backs, whether it's, I don't know, Tyrone Tracy or maybe even like Jalen Warren, those kind of type backs. Just a solid bench running back, I think, could be worth it. And again, the value spike could be there for Sam Laporta while Jameson Williams is out. Good evening to Harris. Good evening to Aiden and Tony here and Christian as well. He needs a QB badly. Gave up on Kirk, Caleb, or Goff this week and moving forward. I think the easy answer for me is Caleb Williams. He's going to get the Washington Commanders defense, which is still one of the best matchups on paper that you can have. Last week they really stifled the Panthers and Andy Dalton, but before that they let Lamar get about 19 points. The Cleveland Browns, again, Deshaun Watson only got 9. Kyler Murray only got 10. But Joe Burrow lit him up for 25. Daniel Jones lit them up for 18 points. And then Baker Mayfield lit them up for almost 30 fantasy points here. So I'm going to lean Caleb Williams here. I do like Jared Goff. He's been playing well. But now that we remove Jameson Williams and some of the deep ball opportunities here, I think Jared Goff's just more like a QB2 for super flex leagues. The Titans have been better against quarterbacks. So we'll lean Caleb. Rank them rest of season. Jennings, McMillan, or Odunze. I mean, I think the number one is Odunze. He is the most talented receiver of the three. We've seen some nice moments from him this season, and he's got like low-end wide receiver 3 flex value right now. Now, where Odunze really wins, and this would be like his pure ceiling projection, is if one of DJ Moore or Keenan Allen are out, Rome Odunze steps into a ton of targets. So he might not be the guy that I'd want to start like this week. I think if I had to start a guy this week, it's probably Juwan Jennings. But you're asking for rest of season. So I'm going to go Odunze, Juwan Jennings, and then McMillan. As much as I like McMillan, I think he's going to be kind of in the slot here. I don't know if he's I just don't know if that's going to be a consistent fantasy situation for us. So I'm going to go again. Odunze, Juwan, McMillan. Aiden's got a 14-man league. Do I drop Leggett or my J.K. Handcuff, Vidal for Palmer or Shepard? I would probably rather just keep on to, it's the Panthers, man. Xavier Leggett. I really like Leggett better than Trey Palmer and Sterling Shepard, but I think the overall stink of the Panthers right now makes you hesitate. Like, are we ever going to trust Xavier Leggett in our fantasy lineups? He's had 2 startable games on the season. I might be more open to just grabbing Palmer or Sterling Shepard right now. I think if I had to choose one of the guys for Tampa Bay, it's probably Trey Palmer here over Sterling Shepard. Like, we know what Sterling Shepard is. I'm kind of curious to see what Trey Palmer looks like in extended role. I believe Trey Palmer led the team last night in snaps. I could be wrong there, but I guess I would go with Trey Palmer and see what happens. He's a deep kind of threat guy, just like Leggett, and he's attached to Baker Mayfield. So I think I will lean Palmer for the 14-man league. Are you still trusting Cousins? I still like Kirk Cousins, as bad as it looked last week. He did throw a couple interceptions. He ended up with 7 points, 12 points the week before, that massive 34-point game. So he's had one good game in the last month, and it came against Tampa Bay, who they're playing in Tampa Bay this weekend. We just saw Tampa Bay get lit up for 5 passing touchdowns. So I'm still trusting Kirk Cousins. They're going to get Dallas after Tampa Bay, which you can pass on. You're going to get New Orleans Saints week 10. So I think the next 3 games here for the Falcons look like a pretty good passing opportunity. Guys that I would probably play over Kirk Cousins this weekend that might be available in your leagues, Caleb Williams would probably be the one. We'll go Caleb Williams there. Yeah, it does remind me of Will Fuller now that you say it. I like Jameson Williams, but one of my favorite, like, he's kind of a knucklehead is what it comes down to. And I'm actually surprised he only got a 2-game suspension. Most cases in my recent memory, I think it's like 4 to 6 games. So 2 games without Jameson Williams. We'll see what he can do. Ooh, good question there, Tony. Auden or Cole Kmet? I'm going to go with Cole Kmet because he's been like the tight end 1, maybe not a tight end 1, but like a top 5 tight end the last handful of weeks here. He's got 2 24-point games, basically a 24 and a 25. He's catching touchdowns. He's involved in the offense. I think Cole Kmet continues to play well. Otten's going to be close, though. I don't know if Otten's going to be a guy that we trust every week in our lineups. He really had a nice second half last night, and that was kind of in garbage time. So I think everyone looks at the 8 for 110 targets and they're like, oh my God, like, he dominated. But most of that came on the final drive or 2 where the Ravens were just kind of playing prevent defense. So I still think Otten's fine. He's entering the tight end 1 mix, but Cole Kmet has been a starting tight end, and I'll continue to lean on Cole Kmet here. Yep, we're going to go with Caleb Williams. And Caleb, I would rank them Caleb, Geno, Cousins. Kraft or TJ Hawkinson rest of season. So I get nervous about when players come back from a serious knee injury. It's very, very rare for them to come back and play at the level that they were playing before the knee injury. So I do like TJ Hawkinson, but right now, I mean, we're talking you got a top, the 4th overall tight end right now is Tucker Kraft. And he's had a few duds, but his 17, his 24, his 12, he's catching touchdowns. And I think for me, I do think Hawkinson has that upside where he could be a top 5 tight end the rest of the way, but I think you have a good thing going with Kraft right now. I'm going to lean Tucker Kraft. I really like his matchup this weekend against Jacksonville too, by the way. But we don't know what TJ Hawkinson is going to look like in his first action back from the torn knee. Chiefs line, Chargers or Bengals. I'm going with the Chiefs. My second choice would probably be the Lions against Tennessee, and then the Chargers. I don't really want to mess with the Bengals against the Eagles. I would rank them as you listed in here. I'm going with the Chiefs. And I was tinkering with my weekly rankings here, and I think I put the Chiefs as the number 1 defense this week. You can drop Whittington in dynasty leagues and deeper leagues. I'm willing to hold on to him, but if you need to make a move for any of the receivers we talked about earlier, I think you can move on from Whittington. Cooper Kupp's coming back, and then you got Puka Nacua probably back next week. So thank you for your services, Jordan Whittington. Is Tank Bigsby not starter this week? So this is how I'm probably going to play Tank Bigsby going forward. They're at home this weekend against the Packers, and it's a decent matchup against the Packers, but Packers have a good offense. To me, this means the Jags are playing from behind in the second half, and we're not able to get Tank Bigsby up to those 20 carries that he saw last weekend. So I'm going to lean towards Tank Bigsby still being the starting running back. Like, I think the roles are starting to get very, very clear, where they want Tank Bigsby to be the primary ball carrier, and they want ETN to be the change of pace, third down passing back. And I like these roles for these guys because it's what they're best at. But this game, I mean, the Packers are 4.5-point favorites here in Jacksonville. It's a high scoring game total, but if the Jags are playing from down 7 to 10 points most of the game, that's going to be more Travis Etienne or Dearness Johnson if ETN can't go. So I like Tank Bigsby, but he's more towards like RB24 for this week. Jennings or McMillan, half PPR. How much would you bid on this player? This player could be started. That's good context, Harris. Thank you. I'm going Juwan Jennings. He's a proven commodity. We've seen him blow up and have a spike game already this year, and he's played pretty well in a few other games this year too. So he's stepping into that number 2 role. He might be their leading receiver in terms of targets the rest of the season. Debo's injury seal is broken. Now he's sick. He's got all these things kind of going against him right now. I actually think Juwan Jennings could be a wide receiver too, like the rest of season here. So hold on to Juwan Jennings. Again, I like McMillan, but I'm not quite sure what we're getting here. I don't think he's a superstar. I think he's a fun player, but he's more of like a fringe flex play where you don't know what you're going to get every week. I think I'm going to trust Juwan Jennings here. Would you be okay with flexing Cade Otton? It depends on who I'm comparing him to at flex. I think if I needed to, my expectation is 7 to 10 points per game going forward, whether that's 3 for 40 on a bad game or 5 for 50 on a good game. That 7 to 10 point range is probably where Cade Otton's going to be rest of season. So if you don't have anyone better than 7 to 10 points, I'm fine with Cade Otton in the flex. Baltimore, Detroit, or the Rams. Let me just look at my DraftKings game lines here. So I think the answer is pretty easy here. We're not going the Rams. The Rams are not a thought against Minnesota. It's between Baltimore and Detroit. I think Baltimore at Cleveland. Baltimore's coming in as 9-point road favorites. They're going to get Jameis Winston, who usually serves them up on a platter at least 1 or 2 times a game. And then the Lions, who are at home against Tennessee, and the Titans are actually projected one of the fewest totals of the week this year, or of the week here. So Baltimore, Detroit. I'm going to lean Baltimore. You can drop Trey Tucker. We're never going to feel confident with Trey Tucker in our lineups. And yeah, go Bucks tomorrow, man. They're getting a softball thrown up to them with no Embiid and Paul George tomorrow night. But I think the Bucks will start off the season 1-0 and then 2-0 against the Bulls on Friday. So thank you, Aiden. Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, Lions. Not going the Chiefs. Not going the Eagles. So cross them off. I want the Chiefs defense, man. To me, I think they're one of the best defenses in the league. They're getting the Las Vegas Raiders here. I'm not scared of that team. Give me the Chiefs. And then again, I would go Ravens and then Lions. Those are probably all 3 top 5 plays this week. I don't know if Debo's going to play. He was discharged from the hospital today, so we're gonna find out more tomorrow. They play on Sunday Night Football, so hopefully they let us know like early Sunday morning that he's expected to play, and maybe he gets some full practices in. We need to see some practice reports. So as of right now, I think he's truly questionable. If he's out, do you think Purdy keeps at number 1 between those guys? On the first comment, yeah. So it was this comment here. Let's just go Caleb, man. Let's just go with Caleb Williams. It's the Washington Commanders, and we've seen them allow fantasy points to the quarterback position. They're coming off a bye week, which I think is good. That's good timing here. Hopefully Caleb and the other receivers and Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift are coming in nice and fresh. I'll go Caleb Williams here in that question, Daniel. Kraft or Jay Ferg this weekend. Great matchup for Tucker Kraft. I'm gonna lean slightly Ferguson because I think he's got a better chance for volume. Kraft is kind of purely a touchdown bet. He's either gonna get you 5 points or he's gonna get you 15 points. And if you can stomach the risk and the reward on that, I think that's fine. I know Ferguson didn't have a great game last time we saw him, but I do trust him to be the number 2, number 3 target in that offense. You never know what it's going to be with the Packers. It could be Dobbs week. It could be Jane Daniels week. It could be Christian Watson week. Even Dontavian Wicks. There's a lot of names in there. So I'm going to lean Jake Ferguson. He's had games with 7, 7, and 11 targets. 2 bad games with 4 points here, but I think he gets back on track. I'm going to go Jake Ferguson here against the 49ers. Chargers or Broncos this weekend. You got to go the Broncos. They're at home against the Panthers, man. I think that's probably the safest play. Probably the safest play of the week here. I do like the Chargers quite a bit, but I still don't really trust the Chargers all that much here. I like the Broncos. McMillan or Trey Palmer. If I have to choose between the two, I will go with McMillan, who I think is going to be. And we saw it last night. Let me just pull up my post-game notes from last night. If you guys are members of the fellowship, you guys can check out the post-game notes from last night's game. But number 1 was Godwin with snaps and routes. Number 2 was Trey Palmer. He ran the second most routes, and he was kind of in the he was in the Mike Evans role on the outside. He only had 3 targets. Jalen McMillan stepped in as the number 3 receiver. He had 8 targets on the night, only 3 for 15, but they ran him the ball. I think you're going to see McMillan step into that Chris Godwin type slot role and potentially be the guy that gets 7 to 10 targets per game, and we'll see if he can stick with there. I think he played a lot of slot in college for Washington, so McMillan would be my choice. Trey Palmer, more of a deep ball, vertical threat. McMillan. Chiefs, not even close. Yeah, we don't trust the Rams, man. Chiefs. Should I look to move Puka, have Garrett Wilson, Neighbors, Higgins, or should I move Wilson and wait on Puka? I kind of want to wait on Puka, man. You know, when he's out there, you feel really good about having Puka in your lineup every week. Wilson's the one that he still had a decent floor game against the Steelers, but he's the one I'm probably more willing to move if I have to move one of these guys. And then me personally, I always like having one extra startable player, and if they sit on my bench, that's fine. You just never know when you're going to need it. Neighbors has concussions. T. Higgins is kind of injury prone. We've seen Garrett Wilson stay healthy, but now with Devontae Adams there, maybe his numbers dip a little bit. I would prefer to hold on to the 4 receivers for the rest of the year, but if you can cash in one of them, I think Wilson would probably be the one that I'm looking to cash in on. Corum or Wright? I think so. I'm assuming that this is like a rest of season bench stash question. You don't want to be starting either of these guys um, in week 8. Corum seems to have hopped Ronnie Rivers as the clear number 2 running back, which is good news. The bad news is he's still not really getting enough work for us to care about. He only had 6 snaps against the Raiders, 3 carries for 11 yards as a rusher. Now, I will note that Jalen Wright continues to look good in limited action. He got 6 snaps as well. He got the ball 5 times for 33 yards. Devon Achane had 15 carries, Raheem Mostert got 11. I think that if there's an injury to Achane or Mostert, we're going to start to see Jalen Wright hit 10 to 12 carries in a game and start to maybe get more work as a passer. So I kind of think right now with Tua coming back, I think there's more momentum in holding on to Jalen Wright. And we've seen him be involved in the offense a lot more than Blake Corum has. Corum has looked better and his value's up a little bit over these last few weeks. I'm going to lean Jalen Wright though. But man, if something happens to Kieran Williams, Blake Corum is going to be the waiver wire pickup of the week. So I like both guys a lot. I think I'm going to lean Blake Corum with my final answer here, just because we know that if Kieran goes down, Corum is the guy. With Jalen Wright, he needs Achane and Mostert to get injured for him to truly have that ceiling that Blake Corum could have. Choosing 2 this week: Jawan, Marvin, and Devonta. Oh man, that's where we're at right now. Marvin makes me nervous, man, and I still think he's a really good player, but something's not right with that offense. They're not scheming him up correctly. I don't hate the matchup this weekend against the Miami Dolphins, but I think you probably got to go with Devonta Smith, and then assuming even if Deebo Samuel plays, I think you go with Jawan Jennings. And we let Marvin Harrison Jr. prove it. He's had some pretty ugly games. So if I'm ranking them, I'm going to go Devonta, Jennings, Marvin. Hey, no problem, man. Hopefully I get some right every now and then. I know so it's funny. Whenever I do start sits and I tell people things, I always remember the ones I got wrong the most because I feel those the most. When I get something wrong, it eats at me more. And even if my fantasy teams lose, I'm thinking more about the advice that I gave here. So it looks like we did good with Sport Dog here. He might drop Josh Downs and go for another receiver, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, or Keon Coleman, or do I keep Downs? Right now, the value for Downs does not look great with Anthony Richardson throwing the ball. The whole group of receivers for Indianapolis doesn't look good. I think when Joe Flacco's quarterback, Josh Downs is a top 25 receiver. With Anthony Richardson, I don't know if Downs is a top 50 receiver in my weekly ranking. So for me, the easy one is Jawan Jennings. I would rank them as Jennings, Pearsall, Coleman. I still like Keon Coleman, but again, Amari Cooper's gonna be taking snaps from somebody, whether it's Matt Collins, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. And Coleman's still a little bit inconsistent. He had a good game last weekend, but I think I want Jawan Jennings out of here. Christian says, should I be comfortable with Dobbins and Jacobs as my RBs? Would move Puka or Wilson to elevate at RB, but you think I should feel comfortable with my RBs? Yeah, I'm fine with Josh Jacobs and J.K. Dobbins. I don't know who your number 3 running back is. I'm assuming it's nothing that you would feel good starting about. So, if you're shopping Garrett Wilson right now, let me just look and see. Garrett Wilson on the year so far, he's wide receiver 5 on the season right now. But we kind of value him more as like a top 15 receiver with Devontae Adams. So top 5, top 15 receiver. I mean, I think you'd be able to get a top running back, whether it's Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, maybe James Cook, maybe DeAndre Swift. If you want to try that route, I think I'm fine with it. You're probably not getting, Henry, Kamara, Barkley, Brees, Kieran, Bijan, Gibbs, Walker. But I think anybody outside the top 8 running backs or top 7 or 8 running backs is probably within play. So I would shop it. Again, I don't know who your other running backs are here, but if you want that nice third running back, I think it's worth looking into. Chargers or Lions or Packers. I like all three defenses this weekend. If I have to choose one of them, I'll go Chargers. Chargers over Lions and Packers. My opponents have Hurts, and I have both AJ and Devonta. Is that good for bad for me? I'm trying to trade Devonta, by the way. Okay, I do like the idea to move Devonta Smith. I think if you have Devonta Smith, you probably need to wait for him to not have -2 yards this week. So maybe you're stuck riding out Devonta Smith for one more week to get better trade value. If you get fair value for it, I think you can go ahead and do it. So here's how it is. When Jalen Hurts runs in a touchdown, that's 6 points, and that helps nobody else in fantasy football besides Jalen Hurts. So the only way Hurts hurts you is when he rushes for a touchdown. Saquon Barkley doesn't hurt you. That's fine if he rushes for a touchdown. What wins for you is when AJ Brown catches a touchdown. That's 6 points for you and only 4 for Jalen Hurts. You also get a reception added onto it. So if Jalen Hurts throws 2 touchdowns and they're both to AJ and Devonta Smith, that's a nice. I mean, you're gaining 3 to 4 points per touchdown catch compared to Hurts here. So I don't think it's hurting you. I think what will hurt you, or what could hurt you, would be if Jalen Hurts gets the rushing touchdown. And luckily, he just got 2 last week here, so I think he might have had his quota for a game or 2 here. So I think you're fine. But yeah, I would look into trading Devonta Smith if you can. My backup RBs are Tank Bigsby, Dowdle, and Tracy. Oh man, I love your backup running backs. I think in emergency pinch you can whip out Bigsby. You're in good shape, Christian. Here, I like all 3 of these guys. I think Rico Dowdle's a top 25 running back the rest of the way. I have very good news and vibes on Tyrone Tracy. So Tyrone Tracy had Devin Singletary back in the backfield this weekend. In terms of snaps, it was Tracy 39, Singletary 12. He had 3 times as many snaps as Devin Singletary. Tracy also ran 27 routes to Singletary's 6 routes. So over 4.5 times the routes of Singletary. They kind of matched in carries, though. Tracy had 6 carries to Singletary's 5, but it looks to me like, hey, Tracy might be the guy that is getting all the third down in the 2-minute work now, and he's also a 50-50 split for actual carries here. So I like Tracy quite a bit, and I think Tank Bigsby is really good, man. I'm excited for his role to go. So I think your running backs are solid. If you need to whip out Rico Dowdle for a week, I think you can get 10 points. If you need to whip out Tracy, I think 7 to 10 points, and then Bigsby kind of matchup dependent here. But I actually like your running backs. I would hold, man. I would hold for one more week here. Blue Jays, thanks for hanging out with us. We traded Jacobs for DJ Moore and a mid-round pick. 3-player keepers. Okay. Needed a receiver bad. Still have Kamara, Hunt, Pacheco, Hubbard, and Bigsby. Asked around. It's the best I can get. I know it's not the best. So we traded Jacobs for DJ Moore plus a mid-round pick. Needed a receiver badly. You still have Kamara, Hunt, which Kareem Hunt looks like a wide receiver or running back 1 right now. So every week you're starting Kamara and Hunt. We'll see if we get Pacheco back. I'm just assuming he's not in our thoughts for the next month or so. And then Hubbard, who I still think has value as a running back 2 for the next week or so. I don't expect Jonathan Brooks back in week 8, maybe week 9. I think more likely week 10 we see him on the field. And then Bigsby is your 3. So I kind of like your running back depth here. And honestly, man, like Jacobs is fine. He's kind of been, he's been scoring touchdowns the last couple games here, which has been nice. But I don't think you're missing out much. He's consistent because he gets touches. That's what you like about him. He's kind of like a David Montgomery type where, you're going to get 15 to 20 touches per game and you're going to like what you see. So you needed receiver. I think DJ Moore, man, is one of the receivers that could really pick up here down the second half of the stretch. He's had 1 bad game on the season here. Otherwise, he's had 5 weeks 1 through 5. He had all double-digit games. The bad game against Jacksonville, whatever, they were up big. They didn't have to rely on him. So I think you won, man. I think you won the trade, and you got a mid-round pick out of it. So, Blue Jays, I think you won the deal, dude. Can you list some running backs that I can trade for Devonta Smith? Okay, so that's a good question. So I'm looking around for Mr. Devonta Smith. He is currently wide receiver 36 on the year. He's averaging about 13 points per game, and he did have he had a dud last week. Before that, we can't really buy too much into the numbers because A.J. Brown missed time here. So I think his 12 to 13 points per game is a realistic expectation. Now, in terms of running back averages per game, I'm going to go down to about 13 fantasy points per game. We're talking Tony Pollard, James Conner. Don't know if you're going to get Devon Achane, but you could try. Josh Jacobs. I don't want to tell you to trade for Rachaad White, but he looked pretty good last night. I mean, he had 10 carries for 40 yards, which is what he's been getting about 10 carries the last few weeks here. And then he was kind of unleashed as a passing down back here. He looks like a guy that could have some value. But otherwise, I will say, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Tony Pollard, James Conner, Achane, Jacobs, maybe Najee Harris. I'm open to Chase Brown as a nice RB2 flex here. So those are probably the main guys that I'm looking at. Odunze over Marvin Harrison Jr. this weekend. I think I'm going to lean Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, I still love the matchup here, but I don't think Odunze is quite startable yet, unless one of Keenan or DJ Moore are hurt. So I'm going to lean Marvin Harrison Jr. here, but I still like Odunze. Drop Tank Dell for Romeo Dobbs. Man. We might be there. Tank Dell, man, we're kind of holding on to that draft capital that we spent on him, and we're still thinking that, oh yeah, Dell's going to turn it around here. But when Nico Collins comes back in a few weeks, that window kind of shuts. Romeo Dobbs is the clear wide receiver one on the Packers in terms of snaps and routes. He's pretty dependable. He's catching touchdowns left and right here. I mean, if I have to start one of these guys this weekend, I'm probably going with Romeo Dobbs against the Jaguars here. So, I mean, ever since Romeo got suspended, man, he's had 19 and 17 points. Like, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to lean Romeo Dobbs, man. But we're almost at 40-minute mark here of the show. If you guys are still with me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you are new. I'm going to get out of here in a minute or so. If you guys have any final questions, please fire them up. Otherwise, it's Tuesday night. Tomorrow night, we will be going live at 7 p.m. Central Time. I'll kind of recap all the injury news and the practice reports from the day, and we'll get you guys caught up with your questions and anything else that we can possibly enlighten you guys with. So this was fun. Good luck on all your waivers. Again, some of my favorite targets this weekend, Jawan Jennings, yes. Romeo Dobbs, yes. I think Jalen McMillan over Trey Palmer for me. I think Ricky Pearsall is worth a look to because he's going to be the number 3 receiver for the 49ers. I still like Dontavian Wicks, Demario Douglas. Cedric Tillman, sleeper for the Cleveland Browns. Maybe Jalen Warren if he was dropped. Maybe Jerome Ford if he was dropped. Some of those guys here. But that's going to do it for tonight's video, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me on this Tuesday evening. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. And we'll see you again tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. We'll go over start sits, and we'll see you there. Peace.